How do you prove something is fake?
We never used a green like that.
He did not do this black dry brush thing.
Oh, I see. Oh, no.
Anishinaabe artist and Canadian icon Norval Morrisseau's legacy was at risk.
He's the founder, man. He's the godfather of what we do.
He was really pushing art in new directions. He was pushing the way people thought of Indigenous people in new directions.
When the Bare Naked Ladies' Kevin Hearn bought a painting from a gallery,
Kevin, I have bad news. Gerald McMaster believes it's a fake.
he descended into a shady world.
They threatened that if I couldn't prove it, they would come after me.
1 month after I started putting them up, I was sued for $17 million.
It's the most unreal art story you'll ever hear.
Who are these people?
Well, it's very simple. You call something fake, you have to prove it's fake. I don't have to prove it's real.
Well, then there's no fakes.
There are no fakes. A TVO original, next.
Originally, Joe McLeod told me that the painting came from this fellow, David Voss, in Thunder Bay, who had a huge collection of Morrisseau paintings stored in a warehouse for years and years, since the 70s. And he's just released them, and they've come through the Randy Potter auction house.
His name was David Voss. He showed up one day and we were sitting on a picnic table eating hamburgers and french fries. And he walked in and mentioned he had some art for me to sell. And the first thing that entered my mind was, oh, more art, because it was just, most art's not worth nothing. So then he mentioned the word name Norval Morrisseau. I went outside with him and he had 8 of them in the trunk of his Cadillac, all rolled up, nice and pretty. He was happy with the prices, and so he started sending me down sometimes a whole bunch and sometimes a few. But he used to phone up and we'd talk a little bit. He was usually too drunk to talk, David, in case he sees this. But he was, he's a character, put it that way.
So you never had to go up there?
Never. I've never been to Thunder Bay in my life. He's invited me up a million times. I never went up. Never once. And I say, David, get this fucking thing straightened out. I can start making some fucking money again. Oh, yeah. But he just drives me crazy. Fucking tequila means more to him than anything else, right? I don't know. That's why I never went up to visit him, because I knew it would just be a big fucking drunk fest. I don't into that shit anymore, man. Fuck, fucking squaws all weekend. Anyways, let's do it.
Okay.
The greatest victim here really is Morrisseau himself and Morrisseau's legacy as an artist.
It's being touted as one of Canada's largest art frauds in history, uncovered in Ontario, with many fake Norval Morrisseau paintings being uncovered. And now questions are popping up about how one of those fake paintings ended up here at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. The fake artwork, called Astral Plane Scouts, was bought by a private collector in Thunder Bay, Ontario, before being donated to the Winnipeg Art Gallery in 2000. The piece was last displayed in 2013 and is now in storage, with head of collections and exhibitions for the gallery, Riva Simcoe, saying they were notified by police on Friday, confirming the piece to be a fraud following a thorough investigation.
For us, it was the signature on the back of the painting was suspect. It was something that was identified as suspect in a number of other paintings, but there are other indicators as well, which now the lead investigator is an expert on identifying, actually.
Morrisseau, who passed in 2007 at the age of 75, was a renowned First Nation artist, known as the founder of the Woodland School of Art, with his work being exhibited in galleries across Canada
And with an art fraud case of this size, Simcoe says more pieces are being investigated.
It's my understanding that other galleries are definitely looking at their Morrisseaus closely. It is already a larger conversation across institutions.
As for the many other Morrisseau pieces owned by the Winnipeg Art Gallery, Simcoe says they are not under investigation.
We have about 11 pieces in our collection. It was just the one that was suspect. The others we're fairly confident on. Several of them actually came directly from Morrisseau. So we're more confident on the authenticity of those pieces, yeah.
And as for the piece titled Astral Plane Scouts, the gallery said they are still working out what to do with it. In Winnipeg, Mitchell Ringos, City News.
You might recognize the design and style, but this painting is not an authentic Norval Morrisseau work. Astral Plane Scouts was donated to the Winnipeg Art Gallery in 2000. The gallery learned Friday it's one of hundreds of fakes attributed to the late Anishinaabe artist. But CEO Stephen Boris says police alerted them more than 3 years ago.
We have 11 works in our collection, but this one specifically was highlighted as a possible fake or forgery.
Thunder Bay Police Service has been investigating David Voss and his art forgery operation since 2019.
David Voss was the architect of the whole scheme. It started in 1996.
Earlier this month, Voss pleaded guilty to running an art fraud ring out of Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay police say they flagged the painting in Winnipeg early on because of the way it was signed.
The black dry brush signature on the back of the paintings was identified as a problematic issue with Norval Morrisseau paintings. And so we knew that painting in particular had that.
Wag Kelmayuk says Astral Plane Scouts hasn't been on display since 2013. For now, the painting is being held in storage. Detective Staff Sergeant Jason Ryback says police aren't in a position to seize all of the fraudulent paintings.
A, for storage issues, one, and B, we don't know what the courts are actually going to say. So we know where it is. We're not in any position fearful that the Winnipeg Art Gallery is going to go sell it.
Stephen Boris says for now they continue to cooperate with the police investigation. He says it's a situation his gallery has never experienced, having a fake or forgery in their collection.
The greatest misfortune is the impact of this on the artist's legacy and his family and what that does. But there are many victims, the artist, his family, people that purchased works in good faith from dealers, galleries that accepted works in good faith.
Boris says fakes and forgeries aren't anything new in the art world, but the gallery will learn from this. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Norval Morrisseau's art is world-renowned, the first Indigenous artist in this country whose distinctive style was exhibited in contemporary Canadian galleries and remains beloved 15 years after his death.
He's like, I didn't paint that. I didn't paint that.
But as a 2019 documentary explored, his art also became the target of fraud, fake Morrisseau artwork.
This painting is alive. Someone put Norval's name on it.
Now, after a 2.5-year investigation, Ontario Provincial Police and Thunder Bay Police say they've cracked a major forgery ring, seizing more than 1,000 paintings and prints. 8 Ontario residents, 5 are from Thunder Bay, including a nephew of Morrisseau, have been charged.
These contributions and his global success may have made him an easy target for fraud. What you see behind me today represents examples of the types of work made under and profited from Norval Morrisseau's name.
Police say one of those arrested, David Voss, began making forgeries around 1996.
He forged some paintings himself before growing his organization into a full assembly line of painters.
Some of the alleged forgeries sold for tens of thousands of dollars. They not only made fake art, but fake certificates attesting to authenticity. John Dellandrea has investigated art forgeries dating back decades to the Group of 7.
this is not a new phenomenon. So it's a function of perception of value and an appetite in the marketplace.
It was a terrible, multifaceted crime that has been going on for decades. And it's great that the police have hopefully cut off some of its many heads.
The Morrisseau Project researches and promotes the importance of Morrisseau's work. Carmen Robertson was pleased to hear of the police arrests, telling Global News, all efforts to ensure the legacy of his art are welcomed, and I look forward to outcomes of this investigation.
I realize what my purpose is to be.
Norval Morrisseau's stature has only grown with time. The hope is that Morrisseau's original art, and not the criminal copies, will be the legacy that endures. Eric Sorensen.
The controversy lays primarily in they are all signed on the back by Norval Morrisseau in English in dry black brush.
Which is where the artist takes a brush that has paint that's kind of been dried and wiped off, and they then write on the back with that dry brush.
So here we have the dry brush signature.
See, this looks weird to me. No.
So if you look at the well-established, good provenance paintings of Norval's that are in public institutions that have been there since the 70s or the 80s, the signature he would apply to them was a syllabic signature.
Which consists of 8 syllabic characters on the front. It signifies Copper Thunderbird, and it was the way he signed his paintings on the front. Norval hardly ever signed the back of his paintings at all, with anything.
Norval never did this. He did not do this black dry brush thing.
Oh, I see. Oh, no.
I'm going to tell you once. The reason was, if his painting went overseas, to Japan, anywhere in Europe,
Belgium,
they could not understand. Nobody speaks the language of syllabics, because we don't have a written language. The Jesuits from Rome came and taught us these symbols so to get into our heads. So when he was doing that, he first started his first paintings N.M. If you look at his very original works.
We're talking the 50s.
Yes. N.M. is what he signed up. And then he met his wife, his wonderful wife, Mamai Ban, Harriet Ban, and she convinced him to use syllabics because it would say his true name. Now, if you take the syllabics and you went overseas, well, who's the artist? I don't know. But you take that painting around and you turn around, oh, somebody all over the world, you could go to Borneo and you'll run into someone who speaks English. Norval Morrisseau and Morrisseau. Well, that's the artist. So I convinced him to do that, and he did that to a lot of his paintings since the time that I told him. He may not have done to all of them, but the majority of the ones that are, was because I told him to do that, because not everybody understands Slavic. And that was just pure understanding is all it was. There was no underhandedness or nothing negative. It was just so that people that don't speak Slavics can understand who the actual artist was. And so it is so, because I've met people from overseas. Do you know that Norval Morrisseau? I said, yeah, that was my oldest brother.
Did that not happen in the airport today?
Yes. So it tells me that I gave him the right instructions so that all of us could know who he was. So that's the reason why his name was on the back.
You don't think it's a Norval?
No, I don't. Not personally.
And you don't know anything about... Did you paint it?
No. I swear on Norval's grave and my grandmother's. Never painted that. If I could, it would look 10 times better than that. That looks like my 5-year-old son painted.
Norval was Benji's, his uncle.
Benji was a very nice guy when we first met him. He wasn't doing no drugs or drinking, but then Gary got him into the drugs. Really bad.
He just ended up at the camp. He started off painting a few pictures of his own style, the woodland art style for Gary. And then we were sitting around one night.
Either Benji or Wolf, one of Norval Morrisseau's brothers.
Was the door open or closed?
Well, sometimes it was open and sometimes they got locked in there. Gary would lock them in the room. So I guess so they can hide in there so no one knows what they're doing. The door was open a couple times and I went by. Benji was in the room painting and then signing the Norval Morrisseau's name onto the front of the painting. At first we thought he was just painting his own work. Then we realized what he was doing when he started putting Norval Morrisseau's name on the back of the painting.
How often would Benji or Wolf be in there painting?
Probably every second day.
After that, they started painting them like crazy. Benji ended up being out there more and more, and then he started calling the guest camp his studio. And Gary's a steady supply of booze, drugs. Went up there a few times. Benji was making backgrounds for the paintings and all this stuff, rolling around butt naked in paint on canvas when he's all messed up. And just a lot of weird shit.
How many paintings were being done?
Hundreds, and lots of them were being painted at Benjamin's house in Collins, Ontario. And we would go meet Benji on the train and pick up all the paintings, and none of them had the syllabics or were signed.
Why not?
Because Gary, for some reason, didn't want signatures on them in case they got pulled over in transport. He didn't want the cops. Something like that. Gary would whisk him away to the back room with a, brush and some black paint, and on the syllabics went, and dry brush style in the back. Some of them had dates in that. Like, Gary would say what year they are and everything, right? Like, he acted like, he had a special bond with every single painting. Like, to me, a lot of it all looked the same. So I'd end up taking out, like, every picture out of the roll, and it's like, okay, is it this one,
Tell me about where the supplies would come from.
We'd go to Painted Turtle here in Thunder Bay.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Just come see what you're finding. I remember coming in and getting art supplies for Benji and Tim.
Yeah. I remember asking Gary, what are you doing with all this canvas? And he said, oh, I'm buying Christmas gifts for all the Aboriginals up north. And
Gary would actually get me or my mom to go with him, and we would present our status cards so he didn't have to pay the tax on everything. And
does Benji still come in?
Yeah, he's been coming in for...
I wonder if he's doing his own work,
years.
or have you seen anything?
I haven't seen his work. Well, that's a weird thing, eh? I've tried to find his work online, because he said he sells online. I can't find anything that says Benjamin Morrisseau.
Really?
No.
Who are the key people in the fraud ring?
Gary Lamont and Linda Ketchick, Benji Morrisseau, and Wolf Morrisseau. Well, Gary got them to do the paintings. Benji was one of the painters, and Wolf was a painter too.
And what was the website called?
woodlandart.org or .com. It was just Norval Morrissey art that Benji painted. People were buying through the website, and most of the customers were out west. Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver.
Dallas would help going on these trips with Gary.
And at that time, that's when production was just, they're spitting them out, the Norval Morrissey fakes. It was crazy. That summer in 2006, 2007, we went to Calgary approximately 26 times in a 2-3 month period, selling art.
How would you get there?
Driving his truck every time. He bought a brand new 2004 GMC Sierra, something, an extended cab, and that's how we drove, me, him, and Benji. And Benji came on 90% of the trips because he was a driver, and Gary, they'd split the driving. We'd drive to Calgary, one straight shot, 23 hours, 24 hours, sell the art, and, you know, sleep and be gone the next morning, drive straight back. On every trip, it was probably about 30 paintings that Gary would bring. Average price was probably around $3,000 for paintings.
And what was your sense of how Gary would pay?
Well, Gary would pay Benji and Wolf sometimes in drugs and sometimes money, depending on what they asked for.
There was an incident with Benjamin, and they had a disagreement. I guess Gary wasn't paying him, and then Benji told him flat out, when the money stops, the brush stops. And then they had a falling out. Benji wasn't in the picture for a couple months, and then that's when Tim Tate came into the picture and started doing the fraudulent art at his house on York Street in Thunder Bay here. And then Gary and Benji, they're back in good graces again with each other. I guess Gary paid him off whatever money he owed Benji.
There are people who say they were part of a fraud ring who have been saying that Gary Lamont was selling these paintings as Norval Morrissey paintings.
I've heard such stories, okay, but I have no direction towards that.
Let me just ask you directly. I mean, did you ever paint?
No, not ever. Not ever.
You never painted
I paint woodlands art. Okay. For me to sign Shaman's name would be such a bad omen on my spirit that it would probably stop me. I haven't attempted this because I already know on hand I wouldn't be able to do this thing. Okay. So I'm here today to set this record straight with you, my good man, and the rest of the art community, that I have never forged my uncle's work.
Canada. Morrissey is colorful on canvas and in his own life, but with fame has come forgery and outrage. Melissa Fung explains.
At this recent auction of Canadian art, Norval Morrisseu's work is a big seller. Sandra Heyman bought this piece for $5,000.
We've been buying Morrisseaus for about 2 years.
But for the last few years, an ugly controversy has threatened to mar the legacy of one of the most prolific Canadian artists of the 20th century.
It's a fraud. And Morisseau himself has been affected.
Norval Morrisseu's lawyer says there's growing concern that an increasing number of fake paintings are being sold in the artist's name.
They're just not old works, they're new works that are being created by some group of people. And we want to get to the source of that. And it's really important that this matter be dealt with intelligently and it be dealt with quickly.
Morisseau is now 73, ailing with Parkinson's disease. He never kept a record of his paintings or his sales. That's why his lawyer and guardians are setting up an authentication board.
You know, the committee that's being put together will look at the paintings and determine which are by his hand and which are not.
In the meantime, the artist has put out a notice saying only the works sold in this Toronto gallery are guaranteed to be real.
We've represented the artist since 1989, and that's 16 years. We've had certainly the longest standing relationship with the artist since Jack Pollock, his former dealer.
He's also, like Matisse, known to be a colorist, and so he breaks all the rules. And,
Joe McLeod began buying art from Morisseau over 40 years ago. He and several other gallery owners have filed a complaint to the Competition Bureau of Canada.
In a very general sense, my sales are down.
McLeod says the Art Dealers Association of Canada already has a mechanism in place to authenticate Canadian art.
I can only believe that there's another purpose in setting up the board, and I think it has to do with controlling the market.
4,000 now.
The controversy surrounding Morisseau's work didn't stop Sandra Heyman from buying this painting.
To me, this is a Morisseau. I am a true collector of Morisseaus, and we know what we're looking for. And I don't believe one gallery can just be the authentic gallery.
Authenticity, in this case, is in the eye of the collector. Melissa Fung, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, accusations of forgery, art forgery, have the Canadian art world up in arms. These are original works by Norval Morrisseu, one of Canada's most famous Aboriginal artists. A lawsuit has been launched by Bare Naked Ladies keyboardist Kevin Hearn and Canadian tenor John McDermott against a Toronto gallery owner. They accuse them of selling them fakes. Joining us now, someone with a great insight to the art of Norval Morrisseu, Richie Sinclair, who was a protege and longtime friend. Good morning to you, Richie. How you doing?
Good morning.
And I know you met him in 1979. You were a college student at George Brown College. What do you make of this particular, I mean, it's been ongoing for you now for over 5 years, but when you see something like this, that someone claims they've bought a fake of someone so close to you, what do you make of this?
I consider it egregious, what they've done to him. It's similar to someone actually stealing your identity, because really the imagery isn't up to par. They're not what I would call true forgeries.
Yeah, so someone is producing fakes, to be sure, of his work.
In my opinion, and in the experts in the Canadian art world, yes.
And they seem to think that this ring is based out of Thunder Bay. Is that the knowledge that you have?
Yeah, the work has been definitely proliferated from Thunder Bay. I personally have seen images of more than 2,000 paintings that came from Thunder Bay that were not directly from Norval.
No, Norval. And one of the issues here is that Norval produced upwards of 10,000 paintings. Is that right?
Most of us in the know don't agree with those figures.
Right.
They've been slowly upped, I mean, to kind of integrate these extra thousands of paintings into his, but my guess is between 5,000 and 7,000 pieces.
For his work.
Yeah.
Now, you have brought some paintings here. One is a fake, and one is an original Morrisseu.
In my view.
Okay, in your view. So is it to the point where you can't even tell?
I know.
Yeah.
In my view.
Yeah. Okay, so you're saying, yeah.
But,
so I have a painting over here to my left.
Yeah.
Now, this painting here, which, tell me about this painting.
Okay, this painting is called Three Gulls. It's from 1972. It's
actually available on the market and was loaned to me by Mayberry Fine Art. On the back of it, you'll see, if I'd like to just show you for the camera. This is a whoops.
Oh, here. It will just hold her up.
Okay. Pollock Gallery sticker.
Yep.
Here. And that was Norval's primary dealer, and this is the highest provenance of his work.
Okay, I'm going to lean it up against here. So this was, in your opinion, an original?
Yeah. Oh, yes. In my opinion, and in everybody else, there's no.
I'm going to just lean this here because I want you to show, and I'll be very careful with this. Now, this is not.
In my view, this is not. In the view of Morrisseau's principal art dealers, this isn't. But this painting actually went through a small claims lawsuit and was found to be, on a balance of probability, authentic. Now,
and you were the only one to testify in that suit, were you not?
No, actually, I was a rebuttal witness. Morrisseau's principal art dealer for 20 years, Kinsman Robinson Galleries, Don Robinson testified with regard to that. But
so you believe that's fake, but it was deemed by the courts to be real.
Right.
Okay. And I guess the other question
not the courts, but a small claims court, really, with only, as you said, one witness versus many other witnesses for those with a vested interest in it. Small claims court is not the place for art forgery.
Now, I just want to ask you quickly, because we're almost out of time, but this has come to light because prominent people like Kevin Herman and John McDermott claim they have fakes.
Yes.
And what's the recourse there? What happens now?
Move forward to Superior Court. They have claims against the Maslach McLeod Gallery.
That's in Toronto, who sold them the paintings.
In Toronto, sold them the paintings, and really, these are two great Canadian artists who care about art.
Have you seen the paintings? Do you think their paintings are real or not?
I've seen Kevin's. I haven't seen John McDermott's. And no, my opinion is that they're definitely from the same stock. Here's the telltale sign.
Okay, we're also, and this is all alleged for sure.
Right. Telltale sign is this black dry brush signature. You'll never find anything from the historical record in the museums that have anything like this.
Right.
So these all appeared after 1999.
Right. So it's all before the courts. Richard, I want to thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I would now like to introduce OPP Acting Deputy Commissioner Kerry Dart and to the podium. Deputy.
Thank you, Bill. On behalf of Commissioner Thomas Carrique and all members of the Ontario Provincial Police, good morning, and thank you for attending. Today, you will hear results of Project Totten, a 2.5-year-long investigation that has led us to uncovering a significant and complex case of art fraud. When we began this investigation, our goal was to identify those who defrauded the public and exploited the work of renowned Indigenous artist Norval Morrisseau. Today, we are here to speak about this investigation and the outcome. On Wednesday, together with our partners, including the Thunder Bay Police Service, we arrested 8 individuals and have since laid 38 charges. In addition, we have seized more than 1,000 paintings, prints, and other art that were purported to be authentic Morrisseau. I'll say it again. Over 1,000 allegedly fraudulent paintings have been seized. The total number produced and sold is unknown. To put that in perspective, if each chair in this auditorium had about 8 pieces of art on it, that's how many pieces we have seized. What you see behind me today represents examples of the types of work made under and profited from Norval Morrisseau's name. For each of these you see behind me, there are another 100 seized as part of this investigation. For each one, 100 more. I will emphasize the significance of Norval Morrisseau and his artwork again. He was the first contemporary Indigenous artist to break into the mainstream art world in Canada. Quite simply, his contributions to art and culture are significant. His contributions to Indigenous art and culture are incomparable. These contributions and his global success may have made him an easy target for fraud. Fraudsters take advantage of people. That is what they do. That's what fraud is. NORVAL MORRISSEAU died in 2007. It remains important to hold accountable those who allegedly profited illegally by forging his artwork. When the OPP assumed leadership of this investigation in 2020, that is what we set out to do. And that's what this team has accomplished. This was a large investigation, one with many moving parts and complex connections. We rely on our relationships and collaboration. In this case, our work with Thunder Bay Police Service made this successful resolution possible. With that, I would like to invite Thunder Bay Police Chief Dan Taddeo to say a few words.
Thank you and good morning. I'd like to first recognize Anishinaabe Regional Deputy Grand Council Chief Melvin Hardy, who's with us today. Thank you, sir, for being with us, honoring us with your presence and your knowledge. And on a personal note, thank you for your assistance in guiding the Thunder Bay Police Service and Thunder Bay Police Services Board on our own journey of reconciliation. I'd like to also recognize that NORVAL MORRISSEAU is from Sand Point First Nation, or Bingui Neashi Anishinaabe. For that reason, I feel it is important to note that the city of Thunder Bay is built on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe people, which includes Sand Point First Nation, a signatory to the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850. As Acting Deputy Commissioner Dart stated, there is no doubting the global impact and significance of the artwork of NORVAL MORRISSEAU. His artwork is found in art galleries throughout this country and, for that matter, worldwide. In 1962, NORVAL, also known as Copper Thunderbird, became the first Indigenous artist to have his artwork shown in a contemporary Canadian art gallery. From there, attention to his work only grew. He became a founding member of what is now known as the Indigenous Group of Seven and had his artwork displayed at Expo 67. He became known as the grandfather of the Woodland School of Art in Canada. Locally in Thunder Bay, we recognize his impact. Sadly, the level of this impact is now attached to the criminal acts that bring us all here today. Of the 8 individuals arrested this week, 5 are Thunder Bay residents. All exploited, all have profited off of the artwork of NORVAL MORRISSEAU. All found ways to make fake paintings or to create fake paperwork. The legacy of NORVAL MORRISSEAU must remain that he challenged mainstream views of Indigenous peoples in his time, and he succeeded in raising awareness and breaking down barriers. His legacy cannot be attached to this criminal act. As you're now learning, the scope of this case is extraordinary. When the Thunder Bay Police Service began this investigation, we realized that it wasn't just local or even provincial or even national, it was international. As such, we understood this and we knew we needed to engage in partnerships to achieve the kind of results we are sharing with you today. I'm grateful for the work and dedication of the Ontario Provincial Police investigators and the Thunder Bay Police Service investigators who together accomplished these results. We work seamlessly and professionally with the Ontario Provincial Police in many of our endeavors, and this just is one more that illustrates the success of our partnerships with them. Joint investigations like this send a clear message to criminals. They'll face the combined resources of the law enforcement community You will be held accountable for your actions. Pleased now to hand it over to Ontario Provincial Police Case Manager, Detective Inspector Kevin Veilleux.
Thank you, Chief Taddeo. I'd like to start off by just acknowledging a few things. I'd first of all like to thank the family of NORVAL MORRISSEAU for their engagement, cooperation throughout this investigation. I'd also like to thank Bingwi, Niashi, Anishinaabeg, Kiwewin, Anishinaabeg Nation, and the Chiefs of Ontario for their continued support for allowing us into their lands and territories to further the investigation, so we really appreciate that. I'd like to say that this investigation would have not gotten to this point if we didn't have the support of leadership from the Ontario Provincial Police and the Thunder Bay Police, so I thank the leadership for all that support. I'd like to thank a partner that has been instrumental in working with us, the Serious Fraud Office as well. So now I'd just like to get into the investigation a little bit more. On March 1st, we arrested 8 individuals for their alleged involvement in the fraudulent manufacturing and distribution of artwork purported to be that of famed artist NORVAL MORRISSEAU. The following people were arrested: David Voss, Diane Champagne, Gary Lamont, Linda Tatchuk, Benjamin Morrisseau, Jeff Cowan, James White, and David Bremner. The arrests occurred in Thunder Bay, Niagara-on-the-Lake, as well as the communities of Egbert in Simcoe County and Locust Hill that is near Markham. This was all done as part of a joint takedown between the OPP, Thunder Bay Police Service. Their arrests mark the dismantling of 3 distinct groups that we believe exploited Mr. Morrisseau's name and his art legacy. These are not small, victimless crimes. These are people that took advantage of one man's legacy in order to turn a profit for themselves. It is alleged that David Voss was the architect of the Thunder Bay Voss Group, which began around 1996. He forged some paintings himself before growing his organization into a full assembly line of painters. He orchestrated all aspects of this operation. He was responsible for selling and consigning these fakes across Thunder Bay, Ontario, and into Alberta, where they were then purchased by unsuspecting members of the public. It is alleged that the Thunder Bay-based Lamont Group, led by Gary Lamont, began around 2002. Gary recruited 2 Indigenous painters, including NORVAL MORRISSEAU's nephew, Benjamin Morrisseau, to create the artworks, which he often sold online to buyers around the world. It is alleged that a 3rd group around 2008, a group known to be the Cowan Group, began to emerge. This group operated in southern Ontario. In this case, Jeffrey Cowan provided false information for provenances of the forgeries and made up stories about the art's origins. While Cowan sold many forgeries directly to victims, James White also acted as a major distributor of these forgeries and prints of the forgeries, which were ultimately purchased by members of the public who had no reason to believe that these were anything but authentic. To legitimize these forgeries, White enlisted David Paul Bremner to produce the certificates of authenticity and completed appraisals for hundreds of the forgeries, which were then relied upon by White and Bremner and others to sell the forgeries to unsuspecting members of the public. It was through technology and witness evidence that we have been able to identify much of the fraudulent art. We have been able to identify those responsible for these crimes. Make no mistake, these were coordinated and intentional efforts. These people duped the public and made a profit doing so. Detective Staff Sergeant Jason Ryback, the lead investigator from the Thunder Bay Police Service, will tell you more about the investigation and the local impact he and the Thunder Bay Police Service members were integral in the success of this investigation. The investigation spanned the province and the country, and I would just like once again to thank all team members that were involved in this investigation. It was substantial and many people were involved, so I'd just like to thank all the team members that assisted us in getting to this point. Jason?
Good morning, and thank you for attending today. And thank you, Inspector Veilleux, for those words. I'd first like to thank all the officers and civilian staff who worked on this investigation as part of our team. They worked diligently and passionately on this investigation. I can think of no better way to honor the impact Norval Morrisseau had on Indigenous art than to hold those individuals accountable who misused his artistic legacy for their own gain. I was aware of Norval Morrisseau and had some knowledge of the woodland style of art prior to getting engaged in this investigation. I first learned about the suspected fakes in 2019 after watching the documentary There Are No Fakes. Soon after, the Thunder Bay Police Service Major Crime Unit opened an investigation. As more information became clear regarding the investigation and it grew, we began working with the Ontario Provincial Police. A dedicated team consisting of members from the Thunder Bay Police Service and OPP was established to complete this investigation. As you have heard, this fraud has been extensive. The investigation has been far-reaching across Canada and into the United States. Some of these paintings have sold for tens of thousands of dollars to unsuspecting members of the public who had no reason to believe they weren't genuine. The courts have authorized numerous criminal code search warrants, production orders, and other warrants throughout this investigation. We have taken 271 statements spanning Ontario, Alberta, British Columbia, and the United States. Search warrants were executed throughout the province of Ontario, including Calgary, Alberta. The Calgary Police Service provided investigators to assist this project team in various aspects of this investigation, and I thank them for their assistance. 98 police officers, including 25 from the Thunder Bay Police Service, 67 from the OPP, were involved in the apprehending of these 8 individuals on March 1st. In addition to the more than 1,000 pieces of art seized, we have reviewed more than 17 terabytes of data from seized devices. That is comparable to 70 cell phones worth of data. Myself, personally, and the Thunder Bay Police Service are grateful for the assistance and guidance of the OPP and the partner agencies who supported this investigation. Before I turn this back to Bill, I'm sure there are many people who are wondering if the Morrisseau painting they have is authentic. And I know there may be some people who feel embarrassed that they fell victim to these crimes. I empathize with you. Again, fraudsters are opportunistic. They're good at what they do. If you believe you have a fraudulent piece of art in your collection, I encourage you to reach out to a lawyer, as police are not in a position to authenticate art. This investigation has been a success in part due to the collaboration and cooperation of our police services. But it has also been a success due to the help and support of the numerous witnesses and those who have come forward to share their stories of being defrauded. For that, I thank you for your trust in the Thunder Bay Police Service and the OPP, and particularly my investigators who you provided stories that helped us get to where we are today.
You're listening to The Link here on Radio Canada International. My name is Mark Montgomery. Ojibwe painter Norval Morrisseau is one of Canada's most acclaimed contemporary artists. His reputation has continued to grow since his death in 2007. There is a problem, however. As interest in his work has grown among collectors, we're also seeing more and more fake Morrisseau paintings being passed off as genuine. Lawsuits concerning fake Morrisseau paintings have been launched by collectors and gallery owners. The situation is complicated because there's no official catalog of his works. And to tell us more about this, we have with us Aaron Milrad. He was Norval Morrisseau's lawyer, and we reached him at his office in Toronto. Mr. Milrad, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
For those not familiar with Mr. Morrisseau's work, give us a brief description of his style.
Well, Norval is perhaps, or was perhaps, Canada's most original artist. His work arose out of the traditions and legends of the Ojibwe people. It was not founded on Western civilization type art. It did not depend on prior historical art of the white man, and it did not arise out of the Group of Seven or Painters 11.
And that's why I say that Norval probably is one of the most original, if not the most original artist that Canada has ever produced.
When we talk about, in the intro I said there's no official catalog. For those who are not familiar with the art world, what is a catalog?
Well, where possible, a catalog raisonné is created for the totality of the artwork created by well-known artists. And they may take a lengthy period of time to put together. This is just happening now with many of the group of seven and some of the earlier American painters of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And it takes a great deal of research, time, and money to put together because you have to have, firstly, experts, cooperating collectors, cooperating dealers, and cooperating museums. And ultimately, when you do finish, you have this catalog of all the original works which are accepted as valuable and important works, whether they are small, large, or in any medium, to catalog the history of that artist's work.
So basically, it's like a book saying everything he did, and you can look in that and see if a painting for sale is in that book, so whether it's his or not, theoretically.
That's correct, and one of the interesting things is that even after these catalogs are put together, and they may run 4, 5, 6 different volumes, or now on the internet, we always come across additional works that we didn't know about. It's sort of a treasure hunt and a lot of fun.
But in putting these catalogs together to document what is and what isn't the artwork of a particular painter, you've already stated that it's lengthy, time-consuming, and often difficult. But I guess in Mr. Morrisseau's case, there is an additional complication, and perhaps you can tell us what that is.
Yeah, the additional complication, and it's just, I get angry when I talk about it, is there appears to be a group of organized criminals out there, dealers and collectors and artists, and even some auction houses, who are creating forgeries of Norval's work, not unlike creating counterfeit money. And in this case, it goes beyond that, in that it affects the reputation of the artist. These works are secondary type art. They are really not very good. They are often easy to to spot. We are working on that right now with chemical analysis and with the involvement of the authorities and so on. And they are literally skimming off hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of the Morrisseau market and tainting it and polluting it with these awful works that are coming into the marketplace and being sold to unsuspecting and untrained buyers.
But Mr. Morrisseau was also, he suffered from alcoholism, and he had to do a lot of work and sort of hand it away to get more drinks or just get by, didn't he?
Well, he was part of the problem way back when. And that's when he had his alcohol and drug problem, and he was living on the streets, and he was rescued from that by someone who became a very close friend to him and was treated as a son, Mr. David Voss, and who looked after him in his later years. Thank goodness he did, or else Norval would not have lived as long as he had. And the difficulty that we run into is not with these older works, which are problematic, and we can deal with them. But what we're running into now are deliberate fakes that are being created by these group of scoundrels, putting them into the marketplace, stealing from Norval Morrisseau his history and the quality of his work.
Well, are they coming from a particular area, and why are they doing this?
Well, I have to be very careful what I say here, because we have certain things that are going on, and I also don't want to say things that I can't prove. The why is very easy: making money off the back of Norval Morrisseau, who's no longer around to be able to point to these works and say they're not by me. Although we do have a list of a number of works that Norval has disavowed that are available to the authorities.
Well, to avoid you saying some things that you don't want to say in relation with potential criminal investigations and so on, how did Norval Morrisseau feel about his works being forged? I mean, he only passed away a couple of years ago.
He was very, very upset and very saddened by this, because he did not understand why this was necessary and why he was being picked on in this fashion by by people that he felt had to know better than do this. And the fear is that some of these people came from his own group of acquaintances.
You mentioned that some of these are easy to spot, but Mr. Milrad, are there fake Morrisseaus that are in fact very difficult to spot, and are these causing problems?
Well, there's always an issue in respect to certain works of a certain era, and a lot of the works that are being made available in the marketplace that are fraudulent come from a particular era, namely the 1970s. And we are doing chemical analysis on that type of material, and we'll be able to determine, I'm sure in the future, works that are, even if they look as if they might be by Morisseau, we know that they are not by Morisseau because of the materials that are used.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who, in fact, is thinking about buying a Norval Morisseau painting? You know, I imagine now they've sort of spread out across the world. If you're in a gallery, say, in some European location or Asian location, what are you going to do to verify whether or not that is an actual Morisseau?
Well, there are museum people who are quite knowledgeable about Morisseau. The National Gallery of Canada has got a lot of expertise in that area. We have the Catalogue Resonate people who are involved in the Heritage Association for Morisseau, who are independent museum people and government people who are assisting in putting together this. Norval's dealer many years back, and for a lot of years, was Jack Pollock Gallery in Toronto, and that's where I first came across Norval Morisseau and working on the first book of his work back in 1977. The book came out in 1978. So I've been around Norval's work for a lot of years. Then later on, the Kinsman Robinson Gallery was appointed by Norval as his dealer, and they are people who sell works that are legitimate and are proper and have come from the estate. So there are museum people, there are appraisers around who can look at the work and get assistance on this, as there would with any other work, because we run across this with Picasso's and Salvador Dali's and Chagall's and so on. And it's gotten to the point now where Norval's works are expensive enough and important enough that these people are trying to take advantage of him and the market and take advantage of the people of Canada.
Well, Mr. Milrad, thank you very much for talking to us about this today. I appreciate that.
You are welcome, sir.
And I've been speaking with Aaron Milrad. He was the lawyer for contemporary artist Norval Morisseau.
A Thunder Bay man described as a serial sexual predator by a Superior Court judge has been arrested again by Thunder Bay police. 60-year-old Gary Bruce Lamont is charged with sexual assault with a weapon stemming from an alleged incident or incidents that occurred over the past month. In 2016, Lamont pleaded guilty to 5 counts of sexual assault for incidents that took place between 1993 and 2007, involving 5 male victims aged 17 to 24. He was sentenced to 5 years in jail and was released from prison sometime last year. Today in bail court, the Crown did not consent to Lamont's release, and he's now in custody at the Thunder Bay District Jail. His next court appearance.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. A Thunder Bay man has entered a guilty plea in a high-profile art fraud case.
Gary Lamont appeared in a Thunder Bay courtroom today. Lee Noonan was there and she joins us live in studio. Lee?
Thanks, Riley. Lamont pleaded guilty to 2 charges today. He's one of 8 people who were arrested earlier this year in relation to the production and sale of fake Norval Morisseau paintings. Thunder Bay police previously said they believe it's the biggest case of art fraud in world history, worth an estimated $100 million.
Gary Lamont is alleged to be one of the main ringleaders in the years-long art fraud, which came to light in the documentary There Are No Fakes. Police say the 8 accused forged thousands of fake Norval Morisseau paintings, valued at roughly $15,000 on average. Lamont pleaded guilty in court Monday to 2 counts. 1 count of forgery for the creation of false artworks attributed to Morrisseau, and 1 count of fraud over $5,000. At a second hearing scheduled for December 14th, the Crown will ask for the withdrawal of the remaining charges against Lamont, as well as the charges against one co-accused, 59-year-old Linda Tachuk, also of Thunder Bay. Lamont will also face sentencing at that time. The court is expecting a fairly large attendance, as victims are being invited to attend the hearing if they intend to seek restitution or wish to make a victim impact statement. All identified victims should be receiving notification from the Crown. The Crown is also seeking the forfeiture of the forged paintings and will be reaching out to third parties who may be in possession of the forgeries. Police encourage anyone who believe they may be in possession of a forged Morrisseau to contact a lawyer. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Indigenous artist Norval Morrisseu was known for many things. His beautiful artwork, founding the Woodland School of Canadian Art gallery exhibitions around the world, and also, unfortunately, for being the target of organized art fraud. Last week, Thunder Bay Police and OPP announced they'd charged 8 people and seized more than 1,000 paintings after an investigation into fraudulent Norval Morrisseu artwork. 5 of the accused are from Thunder Bay. To find out more, we're joined now by Thunder Bay Police Detective Sergeant Jason Ryback, who was one of the primary investigators. Detective Sergeant Ryback, good morning.
Good morning, Mary Jean.
So, let's start at the beginning. What prompted this investigation?
So back in 2019, I was looking at the murder of Scott Dove. And during that investigation, I was contacted by his mom asking if I had seen the documentary There Are No Fakes. I had not, and so I proceeded to watch the documentary, and through that learned of the art fraud that was going on in Thunder Bay and began looking into that issue. It quickly became evident we were getting into something very large. It was the members of the Major Crime Unit who were working on it at the time, and with the senior leadership who was supportive of the investigation, we needed to contact the OPP to come in and work jointly on the investigation.
So the joining of you and OPP, what was the plan there in terms of what the OPP could bring to the work you were already doing?
So the OPP provided a case manager, Detective Inspector Kevin Vayu. He oversaw the investigation. They assisted in providing resources. As it became large-scale and international in nature, we've traveled across Canada, worked with the FBI in the U.S. at the beginning, and they provided a lot of assistance in helping us navigate search warrants with resources in Southern Ontario and officers across the province when we may not have been able to travel.
How did you go about conducting this investigation? It sounds like it was just so much to be done in terms of, interviews and, like you say, search warrants. Tell me a bit about that process and what involved.
Well, it was a systematic process. The investigators assigned to it from Thunder Bay, we all have background in homicide investigations, so we really looked at it from that standpoint. And one of the key things we did was we wanted to reconstruct Norval's life, and so we reached out to people who were with Norval through his painting history, including 2 surviving members of the Indigenous Group of 7, and we learned how he painted, why he painted, what he did, what he didn't do. That was one component of it. The second component was obviously interviewing people involved in the fraud. There were individuals who came forward who were involved in the creation. And then the third piece to that was utilizing technology to today's standards from various agencies that provided forensic reports and evidence to support our investigation.
So what did you discover? How did this actual fraud work? How were the paintings created, distributed? How did it happen?
So I can't get into a lot of the nuances of it because it's before the courts, but in generalities, we learned that in 1996, David Voss was the architect of the whole scheme here in Thunder Bay, and he solicited a group of individuals to help him create the paintings. He was involved in the distribution of the paintings to Southern Ontario, it ultimately got into the art galleries and then into auction houses down in Southern Ontario. And it's well documented. In 2002, I believe, is when the first problem started developing in Ontario with fake paintings. Norval himself was alive during that period and was noting through court affidavits which paintings of his were fake. And there was a real pushback from a group of individuals who were trying to say that there was no problem with the fake paintings. And so once that happened, Gary Lamont got involved, and they started creating a different style of painting. And he was using Indigenous artists Benjamin Morisseau and Tim Tate, who are excellent painters in their own right. And so the paintings became better, better quality paintings, a little bit harder to recognize the paintings, but they were still unique in a sense. And so that continued on till around 2008. And then, again, the controversy was well documented in the media and through the courts. There was some civil litigation on this issue. And a group out of Southern Ontario in 2008 began creating a third style of painting, which, again, they tried to frame it as the 1980s style of Norval paintings. And so there's really three distinct groups. And as you get longer in looking into this investigation, as I have, it becomes quite obvious which painting fits within each group just by looking at them and then looking at how Norval's actually painted his real paintings. The Thunder Bay Art Gallery was fantastic. They have, I think, the second largest collection of Norval paintings in Canada. And so we certainly looked at a lot of the paintings that the art gallery has here. I've been to the Canadian Art Gallery in Ottawa, and a few others have Hamilton provided great assistance, the Glenbow in Calgary, the McMichael Institute, which have great collections of Norval Morrisseau paintings. So that was a kind of the framework of the four stages of what we did.
Wow. A lot of paintings seized. Where were they seized from?
We seized paintings all across Ontario. We seized a large collection out in Calgary. The Calgary Police Service provided great assistance to us out there. We flew out west, executed a couple search warrants out there. I think we were around 1,200 paintings in total were seized. The vast majority were seized in Ontario. We seized hundreds here in Thunder Bay.
What did collectors, owners of these paintings, how did they react? What did they say when you show up and say, this is a fake, I'm taking it?
Well, it wasn't quite that simple. It was an interesting investigation because there was we dealt with victims from, the person who spent their last dollar on something for their retirement, right up to billionaires who had spent millions of dollars on collections. And so we had to engage victim assistance throughout this because some people, it devastated them.
Sure.
There was another faction to this, which a lot of, a victimization of individuals like Kevin Hearn, Richie Sinclair, Gabe Vadas, who was Norval's adopted son, the family members who were also victimized in the sense that they were trying to show that there was a problem with the paintings and were attacked for that view from groups that wanted to say that there was no fakes.
My goodness. And you, before I let you go, you've said you are normally a homicide investigator. What was that like for you, taking on a project so different from your day-to-day?
It was interesting. I worked with a great team of officers from the Thunder Bay Police. I'm just fortunate enough to have been labeled the quote-unquote the primary investigator, but I was only one member of a team of dedicated officers who had a real passion for investigating this. Everything we investigate, we investigate to the same standard. So it really was just another, investigation where we built it. We never left a rock. We turned over every rock to ensure that when we brought this case forward, we were confident in the evidence, we were confident in the investigation, and we're holding the people accountable.
And when will this go to court? Do we know?
I believe the first appearance is March 24th here in Thunder Bay. There will also be the GTA faction is appearing, I believe, in Bradford on the same date.
Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us about it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary Jean.
That was Thunder Bay Police Detective Sergeant Jason Ryback.
Scott Dove was reported missing to the Thunder Bay Police on the 1st of November 1984. He was last seen the previous day on the 31st of October by his family leaving for school, driving his black Pontiac Beaumont, which is a 1966 four-door. He was driving to school, to what was then known as Lakeview High School. It's now known as St. Ignatius High School. He was reported missing, like I said, on the 1st of November 1984, and it was on November the 8th, 1984, that the vehicle that he was driving, the Pontiac Beaumont, was discovered parked at the Lakehead Psychiatric Hospital in the south parking lot. After the vehicle was discovered at the LPH, November the 8th, 1984, a few weeks went by, and then a couple walking their dog on this road behind me discovered Scott's body in the ditch just off the road. This road leads just off of Copenhagen Road, and it's typically used by construction companies for drawing gravel as a business, but it's also used as recreational paths for people that want to walk their pets and whatnot. Besides the businesses that came out here for the gravel and the pit material, young people knew this area well for coming to a secluded location to party and that sort of thing. The area, the way it is now, resembles much the way it did in 1984. So where Scott's body was discovered, just off the side of the road, isn't typically where someone would try and hide something. It's almost like it was placed there to be discovered. And that's the angle we're investigating it from, is that it was to make some type of statement. We do believe that there is someone out there today that knows something about this incident and that could assist the police in bringing the person or people to justice that did this act and provide closure to the family and the community.
And you know, like there's a lot of people in that those clubs and that you can't trust, but you don't realize that, because they're all rah behind you. But it's kind of a real, like, a lot of people that are two-faced, would talk behind your back, try to get you in trouble. You know, it's not really a brotherhood like it's supposed to be. It's a lot of greedy bastards trying to fuck each other out of money, and a lot of untrustworthy stuff. Like I found when I was in the Hells Angels or the Satan's Choice, like, the Satan's Choice was more of a brotherhood, but the Hells Angels, you didn't have to worry about any of the other clubs. You had to worry about your own guys. Most guys probably in the Hells Angels probably get murdered by their own members, you know, for some greedy financial reason or otherwise, or just, you know, who knows why. But you know, there's a lot of history of it.
Let's go back and let's talk about your relationship with Gary Lamont. First off, your relationship with Danny Ranta. Who did you meet first? And the particulars of their relationship, their business relationship, how you first met Danny Ranta and under what circumstances, and tell us about the business that you guys were all involved in.
It was marijuana business. Like I said, I used to have a house on Pearl Street. I used to sell pot out of that address. And Danny Ranta, he was a real younger, I'd even say preteen, and he'd show up there with all this cash and buy pot. And I guess him and Gary were partners in this, and Gary would buy a lot of pot too, like, you know, thousands of dollars worth, and he would sell it and have people selling it for him. And he always seemed to have a little entourage of natives because he was from Beardmore. He didn't look nothing like a native, but somehow he associated himself to the natives, and he did have a lot of younger native friends, which seemed kind of weird at the time. But he also had a wife, and, you know, he played like a straight guy, like he didn't play like he was gay or anything like that. But I guess later on in his life, you know, he was convicted.
Let's go back to where, before 1984, and the relationship you had in terms of selling marijuana to Gary Lamont and Danny Ranta. Explain that relationship. Gary Lamont sat at a house, but what was Danny Ranta's role?
Well, they seemed just like they were friends and also business partners. But Gary, like, he had epilepsy, eh? And he used to have fits and everything. And when he got excited and that, and to me, that's what would make me think that he wasn't capable of a lot of the stuff that he was capable of. You know what I mean? Because he being epileptic, and he had pancreatitis, and he was always sick, and he wasn't always real healthy. And then that epilepsy, I don't know, it's to me, it's like, seemed like if he got excited, he'd have a fit. So to me, I didn't really think that he could be capable of.
1984, Gary Lamont is selling weed to high school students at Lakeview, and he's got a place that's close to Lakeview. Danny Ranta is partners with Gary Lamont, but what does that mean in terms of selling marijuana? And where would Danny Ranta sell his marijuana? Where would Danny Ranta sell his marijuana?
Mostly to all his friends, like high school. You know, he seemed to have a lot of people that, you know, because of that age group that wanted to buy it, but mostly in North End, Port Arthur, and, you know, quite possibly a little bit of rural Finlander customers. And he was just out there. He had a house in Current River, and then he eventually sold out of there. And then he pretty well was like a candy man for Current River for a little while.
Is that, what year was that?
It was after 1984 when he bought that house, probably about 87.
Well, how about 84?
84, he probably still living with his parents.
Right.
And then Gary House had a house and a wife, and, you know, sold dope out of there, and had a lot of people coming through.
So in 1984, he lived on Fitzgerald, and that was a house?
Yeah, yeah. That was a house, plus they rented rooms to students, and they had Yogi living in the basement. He was about a 400-pound guy that he'd come up from the basement and sell you the weed.
Right.
It was like, I don't know, he was I think he eventually died, but he was a real big guy, but he was real smart. Like, he was an accountant, but he also was a friend of Gary's and sold weed for Gary and lived in the basement. But, you know, they'd have a full house of people all the time.
So how were Danny Ranta and Gary Lamont partners?
Well, it was more like, you know, they both sell weed. They put their money together. You know, they'd buy together. Mostly Gary was like the boss, and Danny was like the junior partner. And they just seemed to hang around a lot, and, you know, they were always, you know, putting money together to get weed.
Right, right. And was Danny Ranta in high school at that time, or?
Yeah, he had started out. He was in high school.
Well, do you know in 1984 if he was still in high school?
Oh, guaranteed.
And how old do you think he was? 17?
Yeah, something like that. In his teens.
Gary Lamont was full time. He would open when? In the morning?
Yeah, when people got there.
So he was open.
Yeah.
And Danny Ranta lived at home with his parents, so he would sell maybe at high school.
Yeah, he'd be out and about in the community selling weed, you know. And, you know, he was hanging around Gary's quite a bit, too. You know, people would come there looking for him.
Oh, they could connect with Danny through Gary.
Yeah, they were always together quite a bit.
Right.
You know? So, yeah.
After 1984 and Scott Dove, you say that you told me that you had nicknames for these guys after that.
Yeah, we call them the Killers. Because the police were trying so hard to stick it on Gary that he killed Scott Dove. that just for as a nickname, we'd call Gary the old killer and we'd call Danny Ranta the young killer. So these are just nicknames me and my buddies made up because, like we didn't know that he killed anybody or anything, but he just ended up getting the nickname because the cops were trying to hang that murder on him so much for so long. But,
well, you thought it was really unlikely, and that's why you thought, well, we'll give him these nicknames.
Personally, I thought it was unlikely, but since then, he probably did have a hand in the murder. At the time, I didn't think the guy was really capable of violence, but somebody that's not capable of violence can always get somebody else to do it for them. Especially if they got money or a little bit of influence and stuff like that.
Well, when we're talking about that, then you don't have to name names, but what did you hear was the fate of Scott Dove and why?
Well, I heard that Gary gave that Scott Dove up to two other guys to take him and do whatever they wanted to him. And, I guess I don't know the particulars, but that's all I heard.
And do what with them? You said that these guys were notorious for what? And so what?
Well, one guy stabbed one of my friends, and the other guy was a crazy fucking drug ripoff, fuckhead, hard language. Well, they're both two really unsavory characters. I don't want to name any names, but I don't have any proof or any. It's just kind of something I heard through the grapevine. And the guy that told me said it was like pretty well general knowledge that this happened. So who knows? Anything's possible.
So the motive was that he was resisting a sexual advance by Gary Lamont?
Possibly, or they were putting it on him that he was a police rat or an informant or something. I don't know why exactly the kid got it or whatever, but this is just what I heard, through the grapevine from another guy that seemed to be closer to those people and that knew them better. And that's basically what he said.
You talk about that he had so much heat. You talked about him at the courthouse. How long are we talking that you understand that he has got a lot of heat on him for the Scott Dove murder? How long do you think that takes after?
I don't know. I'd say up to about 5 years. They were bugging him, doing everything they could to pretty well hang that murder on him. Also raiding his house all the time. And
what were they doing to pin it on him? Give me an example of what they were doing.
Well, it's just like, okay, the word was that Scott Dove left his house with $1,000 to go to Gary's house, and that was the last time he was heard from, okay? So that rumor just caused the police to just make the guy's life miserable. Like, he ended up in jail over it a couple of times and stuff like this. And they really did try to, he's a number one suspect, and they really did try to make a case against him, which they never did, but it's still kind of a mystery of what really did happen. So I don't know, about 5 years, I'd say they made his life hell over that murder.
Wow. And what would he say to you about this hassle by the police?
Well, he always denied everything. He said, no, he didn't, he was not involved, and he denied, that he had anything to do with it. And, just knowing the guy, I believed him because he seemed sincere, and I knew the guy not to be, other than what he appeared to be, was, kind of a pacifist, and I didn't know him to be violent. Like, I never knew him to get into any fights.
Was he a big guy?
Yeah, he was fair size.
Yeah?
Yeah. At one time, I don't know how big he is now, but...
And he was a few years older than the kids, eh?
Yeah, he was always older, yeah. He was kind of in between, younger than me and then older than all these kids. The kids were all like teenagers.
When did you first ever speak to police about their suspicions about your involvement with Scott Dove? When was the very first time? And you had spoken about it before. Can you remember sort of the kind of gist of the conversation when they did come and they did ask?
Well, I just explained. They asked me questions just like as you're interviewing me down at the police station, and I told them, hey, I used to sell Gary weed, and I think I was even a suspect, the way they were treating me and stuff. But and I think that was coming from Gary and his wife, because his wife cleans houses, right? And she was cleaning a friend of mine's house, and she told them that I killed Scott Dove. And then after that, I get all this police attention, like, they were here 4 or 5 times asking me questions, taking me down to the police station for this interview and all that. And I'm pretty sure that came from them people.
They knew where Gary Lamont got his marijuana from.
Yeah, it was in the Satan's Choice, so that kind of would throw kind of a blanket over it. It was choice dope, and people used it after you alone. If they, we were like not semi-possibly protected by the club, but, you know, people didn't fuck with you anyway.
Well, I don't think people will understand that. What people may have thought, and what I believe from what people have told me, is that Gary Lamont, after 1984, used the association between you to imply or insinuate or imply that he was somehow involved with the Satan's Choice.
Yeah, I'm guaranteed. He bought a motorcycle, you know, he had tattoos, he tried to look the biker look, he wore support clothes, you know, that anybody could buy. Yeah, sure, of course. You know, play it up as much as he could. Like, I wasn't the only guy in the Satan's Choice that sold him dope either. So there was other guys, you know, they possibly, you know, whatever, he could play the role of, you know, because of them too.
I didn't know that. But in 1984, what were you selling specifically to Gary Lamont, as far as you could remember?
Pounds of marijuana.
Marijuana?
Yeah, come from BC.
Hollywood, Halloween 1984, marijuana?
Oh yeah, guaranteed.
What else would Gary possibly be selling,
you know,
other than that?
I don't think anything else, really, to tell you the truth. Like, him and Ranta were into coke, but they were mostly into it just for personal use. And as far as I knew, he just sell either smokables like marijuana, hashish. You know, I don't even know if he ever got into the honey oil or any of that, but just smokables, basically.
Tell us more about what happens eventually with you and marijuana and convictions.
Oh, I got busted for 138 pounds of Thai weed, a couple of kilos of black hash, and a whole trunk full of automatic weapons. And I ended up getting a sentence of 3 years in prison, Stony Mountain. Well, that was one of my beefs. But, you know, I went to court a lot and went to jail a bit, you know, off and on for about probably 30 years.
What was your sentence for the 130 pounds, and what happened with those gun charges?
Well, okay, the thing is, my girlfriend was involved. The guns and the marijuana was in the trunk of her car in her name, and the guns were in her apartment, right? So what happened was we went to court for about 3 years, and then they basically gave us a deal. She could go to jail for 18 months if she accepted that that was her guns and marijuana, or I could take 3 years. I'd have to take the blame and she'd walk. So I took the blame, she walked. I got 3 years in Stony, and they dropped the gun charges. So to this day, I still don't have any violence on my record, but I got marijuana. What's the charge? Trafficking illicit substance or something like that. But anyway, I got 3 years for basically 138 pounds of marijuana.
And what year was that?
1992.
How much time did you do, actually?
I did a year.
Yeah.
2 years on parole. You know, which is a big deal. Like, now it's legal. Back then, very few people got busted for that much dope. And, you know, it was kind of a, you know, at the time, it was like a groundbreaking. After that, a lot more people were coming to get busted for a lot more dope. But up until that time, it was a pretty big bust for the cops at Thunder Bay.
Now, can you tell us what Verge told you? And again, he told me as well, but can you tell the story again of what the police did with their interaction with Verge, your friend Verge?
I don't know. I guess they were asking some questions out there about certain guys that were, one of the guys stabbed Verge, and, you know, he possibly could have been some kind of suspect. So they went all the way to BC and went to Verge's house in Surrey, British Columbia, and they interviewed him and asked him questions about this one guy that stabbed him before, and he was possibly a suspect, and that's pretty well the long and short of it there.
Did they ask him about anything involving Scott Dove at all?
Well, not really. They were more like asking him about this one guy that maybe they thought that he had something to do with it. I don't know. Verge didn't know Scott Dove. He didn't know anything about it, even living in Vancouver. You know, he may have heard about the murder or not. I don't know. But they were more interested in this other person that had stabbed Verge before, and, you know, he had a kind of a criminal history of violence.
Well, you heard the same name. You heard the same name of the same person.
In the rumor.
In a rumor. And
yeah, maybe that got around to the police.
And the police just happened to have that same name.
Yeah.
In questioning of Verge. What did they ask you about Danny Ranta?
Just about, you know, his relationship with Gary, and did he buy weed off me? And that was, you know, how long I knew him, where I knew him from, stuff like that. That's about it.
So in the questioning of you about you sold marijuana to Danny Ranta, you sold marijuana to Gary Lamont.
And they were trying to beat around the bush saying, well, what would happen if somebody pulled a big ripoff, like more or less if Scott Doves pulled a ripoff and that's why he was killed and stuff like this. And I said, well, basically nothing. Like people rip people off all the time in Thunder Bay. And, the worst thing I've ever seen is a guy might get a shot in the head for it or something. It seems inconceivable to me for, somebody to murder somebody over a fucking dope ripoff in Thunder Bay.
So they mentioned dope ripoff? They'd never ever mentioned...
Yeah, they mentioned that. Like as if, to push it in direction of maybe Scott Dove ripped off possibly me or somebody else. And maybe, that's why he got murdered. But, to me, that's inconceivable.
Was Gary Lamont or Danny Ranta in the practice of fronting marijuana to high school students and racking up a huge debt?
Not really. Everything was pretty well cash business.
There'd be no motive. Would there be any motivation to front him enough large amounts so that he could get over his head?
I don't think so.
According to the witnesses at the inquest, he'd been selling marijuana for possibly a full 60 days.
Yeah, probably.
That's it. And selling grams as far as any testimony. So, is it even possible for you, or Gary, or Danny Ranta to have had any motive to give this guy enough money that he would be in any kind of serious debt?
No, there's no possible way. And even if you are, I've had people owe me money. I do now, thousands and thousands of dollars. And the only thing that really happens is I don't talk to them and they don't talk to me, That's basically the way things go. I don't think it had anything to do with anything like that, Just, the dope business is like the retail business. You lose so much on bad credit.
Right.
And that's how it goes. You just go on ahead and make more money.
Your membership in the Satan's Choice, did you sell marijuana to Gary Lamont and Danny Ranta, or did the Satan's Choice sell?
Well, I did personally. The choice had nothing to do with it, but it's just that I was a member, and the choice never got no money out of it or nothing, So that makes it so it was just between me and them. But usually when you're in something like that, people they treat you with more respect. As far as the drug world. Because, you probably have, some guys behind you that, possibly could back you up.
What was the rumor you heard in terms of the condition of Scott's body? Did you hear anything?
Well, I've heard everything like that. The kid had his tongue cut out, his privates cut off, put in his mouth, all this crazy, bullshit through the community. But nobody really knows for sure. I think people just make stuff up, or they jump at assuming stuff.
If somebody were to want to buy marijuana, ounces of marijuana, a quarter pound of marijuana, and he knew Gary Lamont, but he also knew Danny Ranta. He may have known Danny Ranta longer, I'm not sure. But regardless, he knew Danny Ranta and he knew Gary Lamont. That's according to Danny Ranta. Is there any reason Scott Dove, regardless, despite buying ounces of marijuana, according to witnesses from Gary Lamont, is there any reason Scott Dove, you're not knowing him, but is there any reason for Scott Dove to not be able to buy that same marijuana from Danny Ranta?
Possibly. He could buy the same marijuana from me if he knew me, but they didn't know me, so he'd have to go down the line. So Gary, Danny, they sold kind of, smaller quantities at the door. He could have got off either one of them, for sure.
Gary sold what amount?
He'd sell grams, anything, any amount. From grams to pounds, basically.
Well, what about Danny?
pretty well the same.
So they both had access to any amount, or
10 pounds at a time.
So if Scott Dove wanted to make a drug deal, wanted to buy some marijuana, he could have arranged a marijuana deal in the morning. Would Gary Lamont do a drug deal outside of his house?
The guy's so hungry for money, he'd fucking probably do anything. You know, like they used to sell dope there 24/7, and he'd go there basically any time, and somebody would answer the door.
Would it be typical for him to be not there though? And would he leave the house
himself? He always had like subordinates that, you know, answered the door, sold the weed. He'd yell for them, whatever. He'd sit around like he was a king or something.
Have you ever spoke to Danny Ranta about this Scott Dove thing at all, even after my involvement or the interviews or?
Yeah, he's never admitted anything. He always, you know, said he was being accused and he didn't know anything. And, you know, that's what he was always, you know, portrayed to me.
How was he being accused? Did he ever expand?
I've probably been fucking around questioning him over the years, and you know, he was pretty tight with Gary at the time when Gary was getting all the flack, so he probably felt some of it.
When did you find out that he was raped by Gary Lamont?
Well, pretty well when he was here one night when he was all drunk. He let it slip or whatever. You know? That Gary took advantage of him, raped him, whatever. But you know, he was almost like tears in his eyes and stuff like that. You know,
did he kind of state when that kind of was? What you know if that was after 1984?
He was just a young teenager.
So you mean before 84 or after 84?
Actually, before 84.
Before 84. And so, despite being sexually assaulted, he still.
Yeah.
Was his friend.
Yeah, they still hung out, did business and everything. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he forgave him. Maybe he liked it. I don't know.
Strange, isn't it?
Well, for me it would be. For you it would be. But to these creeps, who fucking knows? You know, like they had some kind of almost like a paternalistic relationship. You know, he was the boss and Danny was the kid, and the guy was twice his age.
Why do you think that Scott Dove was killed?
You know, it just doesn't make sense. Kid's probably just a nice, innocent little kid in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's probably what happened there. Anyway.
Yeah.
But not knowing anything about it, all I can do is just knowing Gary and the rest of the situation. He probably had something to do with it. That's basically all I really have to say.
This is the greatest art scam by far in all Canadian history. There have always been fakes by famous painters, but none of them that even begin to be on this scale. 3,000 fake paintings is a lot of fake paintings. So I'm not surprised that many people opposed our view that the paintings were fakes.
Norval was involved with many people, many bad people too in his life, who came in from left field and, oh yeah, we love your art. Mr. Morrisseau, we love your art. In hindsight and later in life, what I learned, these people were killers. These people are fucking animals.
Well, the more you dive into a pool of garbage, the more you get to know the garbage within it.
Each stone we overturned revealed 5 more stones, and I found myself in this sort of complex, dark story, which went beyond art fraud. I was introduced to a young man named Dallas. Dallas was on the inner circle of the fraud ring.
How do you feel having been part of it?
I wish I wasn't.
I wish, you know, things turned out different for me, but I was dealt the hand I was dealt, and I just gotta play it out the best I could, I guess.
And he worked with a man named Gary Lamont.
He was a white guy, pretty big, scary. Yeah.
I learned that how deeply involved Gary Lamont was in what was going on.
Gary Lamont?
Yeah, Gary Lamont.
Who is he? How does he fit?
Gary Lamont, I met him. He was selling Norval Morrisseu paintings on eBay.
Gary Lamont was a drug dealer in Thunder Bay here. He's well known for being a biker, a badass. In the summer, he invited me out to his camp to party. It was just north of the city on Warnica Lake. He would only come out a couple nights a week. I'd just stay out there, look after it. He stored all of his drugs there. So it was like a fortress, right? Once you locked the door, you couldn't get in or out. There's bars on all the windows and doors. As you can see, the bars on the windows, those were on every window. Barriers on the doors, big steel cages for the doors. Just sat around smoking dope and drinking all day and, you know, listening to music. And then he bought a computer, and my family being poor, I never had a computer growing up, so this is just way out there for me, so I just loved it, right? And then he was buying artwork too, right? Just collecting for show. Had him up on his walls, bedrooms. That was my bedroom over there. I used to have a Benji Morrisseu original hanging in my room out at the camp and all that. Norval was Benji's, his uncle.
Benji was a very nice guy when we first met him. He wasn't doing no drugs or drinking, but then Gary got him into the drugs really bad.
He just ended up at the camp. He started off painting a few pictures of his own style, the woodland art style for Gary. And then we were sitting around one night, and then Gary kept saying, "Oh, no, you can't do that. You can't do that," about the Norval's Copper Thunderbird syllabics, right? And I was like, no fucking way. You know how easy it is to do that? And I grabbed it, did it. And then that must have just, boom, brainstorm in his head how easy it was to do the syllabics. Norval's syllabics, there's 8. And Benji's native syllabics, there was only 6. And then I started seeing Benji signing Norval's signatures to his artwork after. Yeah, this was the guest camp here. The guest camp, that was also Benji's art studio. That's when they started making the fakes.
When you go into the house, there's a side door. They go up like 3 sets of stairs, and then there's a little office they used.
Who would be in there?
Either Benji or Wolf. One of Norval Morrisseu's brothers.
Was the door open or closed?
Well, sometimes it was open and sometimes they got locked in there. Gary would lock them in the room. So I guess so they can hide in there so no one knows what they're doing. The door is open a couple times and I went by. Benji was in the room painting and then signing the Norval Morrisseu's name onto the front of the painting. At first we thought he was just painting his own work. Then we realized what he was doing when he started putting NORVAL MORRISSEAU's name on the back of the painting.
How often would Benji or Wolf be in there painting?
Probably every second day.
After that, they started painting them like crazy. Benji ended up being out there more and more, and then he started calling the guest camp his studio. And Gary's a steady supply of booze, drugs. Went up there a few times. Benji was making backgrounds for the paintings and all this stuff, rolling around butt naked in paint on canvas when he's all messed up. And just a lot of weird shit.
How much of his business was art and how much was drugs?
Probably more than 50% was the art.
Gary never told me, it just clicked, you know? I was like, I know what the fuck's going on, you know? And he was just like, yeah, well, you can't fucking tell anybody what's going on, and, you know, shit like that.
And did he threaten you about it?
No, no, it's Gary Lamont. Like, everybody was scared of him at the time anyway. Like, he didn't have to.
Everybody knew his reputation around the city. Well, he used to tell people what he can do to people. Gary used to say he's able to get people murdered.
That's me and Gary. This is in 2003. Oh, he'd yell, he'd fucking just give you a look, and you fucking you just shut up, stop, whatever the fuck you're doing, you know, the next thing that's gonna be coming is a fucking fist to the face. And he used to wear all these gold rings, eh? That's what I mean by all his gold rings he'd wear. Hurt like hell getting punched in the face by him. Just come out of the blue, you'd end up fucking saying something, like, you know, just joking around, say something you didn't like, and, you know, you get fucking, what the fuck, you know?
How many paintings were being done?
Hundreds, and lots of them were being painted at Benjamin's house in Collins, Ontario. And we would go meet Benji on the train and pick up all the paintings, and none of them had the syllabics or were signed.
Why not?
Because Gary, for some reason, didn't want signatures on them in case they got pulled over in transport. He didn't want the cops. Something like that. Gary would whisk him away to the back room with a, you know, brush and some black paint, and on the syllabics went, and dry brush style in the back. Some of them had dates in that. Like, Gary would say what year they are and everything, right? Like, he acted like, you know, he had a special bond with every single painting. You know, like, to me, a lot of it all looked the same. So I'd end up taking out, like, every picture out of the roll, and it's like, okay, is it this one, you know?
Hello, I'm now going to briefly discuss David Voss and Ralph Schneiders. Now, David Voss came to Toronto in the late 1990s and met with Joe McLeod in the hopes that Joe could sell David's collection of Norval Morrisseau paintings, and also the fact that David wanted Joe to sell more of his paintings as he had a supply up there of Norval Morrisseau paintings. Joe told David, listen, I have other artists too, and I just can't sell the amount that you want me to sell. So Joe referred him to Randy Potter, and I've already gone over David Voss's relationship with Potter, David Voss's relationship with Don Robinson, and all that. But the point I want to make out is that after David told Robinson that he wouldn't cut out Potter, Robinson started this whole fake Norval Morrisseau narrative. Anyways, I now want you to go to on the website the link that says Proof of David Voss, and you'll see a letter dated January 2012 to Ralph Sneeders from Jonathan Sumner, and you'll see a response to a statement of facts signed by Mr. Sneeders in February of that year. In that statement of facts, he says that he dealt with David Voss for 15 years, and David Voss provided him with Norval Morrisseau paintings, and he did business with David. And if you also look at the documentary There Are No Fakes, Randy Potter discusses his relationship with David Voss. Now, the provenance given to Kevin Hearn from Joe McLeod lists Ralph Sneeders and Robert Voss, who is, of course, David Voss's real name, as his real name is Robert David Voss. Some people call him Robert, and some people call him David. Now, you take a look at the expert report by Carmen Robinson. Ralph Sneeders tells her he knows of a David Voss, but not Robert Voss, but heard of a Voss family in the Thunder Bay area. I mean, is anybody really as stupid as this? My legal name on my birth certificate is Joseph Otavnik, but people call me Joe. So if someone asks you, do you know Joseph Otavnik, would you say no? Oh, but I heard of an Otavnik family in Oshawa. I mean, really? Bottom line is, Sumner did not disclose to Hearn or to Carmen Robinson the fact that he in fact knew that David Voss was a real person and that Ralph Sneeders dealt with David Voss. The reason why he didn't bring it up because 1, Ralph Sneeders was dead, and 2, he didn't want to disclose that to Carmen Robinson or Kevin Hearn. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thunder Bay, a second accused of operating an art fraud ring to sell fraudulent paintings attributed to the world-renowned Indigenous artist, Norval Morrisseau, has pleaded guilty to 2 charges. David Voss, 52, of Thunder Bay, appeared before Justice Bonnie Kenton on Tuesday where he pleaded guilty to 1 count of forgery and 1 count of uttering forged documents. Voss was one of 8 people charged in March 2023 following an investigation by the Thunder Bay Police Service and Ontario Provincial Police first launched in 2020. Believed to be one of the largest art fraud rings in the world, investigators said at the time that more than 1,000 alleged Morrisseau fakes were seized, and it is believed there are between 4,500 and 6,000 fakes created by several art fraud rings. Morrisseau, also known as Copper Thunderbird, was from Bingui Nayashi Anishinabek First Nation. He gained international recognition for founding the Woodlands School of Art, and his work has been exhibited in galleries across Canada, the United States, and Europe. In 1978, Morrisseau received the Order of Canada. He passed away in 2007. Gary Lamont, who was responsible for one of the art fraud rings, has since pleaded guilty to 1 count of forgery and 1 count of defrauding the public above $5,000. Lamont oversaw the production of 190 Morrisseau fakes and was sentenced last December to 5 years in custody. He has also pleaded guilty to several unrelated sexual assault charges. The other individuals charged by police as part of the investigation include Benjamin Morrisseau, 53, Diane Marie Champagne, 63, Linda Kachik, 59, all from Thunder Bay, as well as Jeffrey Cowan, 47, of Niagara-on-the-Lake, James White, 81, of Isa Township, and David Bremner, 75, of Locust Hill. All charges against Kachik were withdrawn following Lamont's guilty plea. A hearing for Benjamin Morisseau was held earlier this year, and the matter will return next October to set a date for a potential resolution. According to an agreed statement of facts read into the record on Tuesday, between 1996 and 2019 Voss produced or oversaw the production of between 1,500 and 2,000 fake Morisseau paintings. He also oversaw the distribution of the fraudulent works to galleries that in turn sold them to third-party buyers. Hundreds of fake paintings have been seized by police, but an unknown number are still believed to be outstanding. The court heard Voss would draw outlines of the works using pencil and then add in a lettered, or paint by number, system for the colors to be used to fill in the spaces and complete the works. Many of the Voss ring paintings were determined to be fakes through the detection of carbon markings under the paint consistent with pencil to complete the underdrawings and to denote the colors to be used. Voss would also sign Morisseau's name using Anishinaabe syllabics, as he was known to do throughout his career. The fraudulent paintings were sold to distributors and galleries in Thunder Bay, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and Alberta. The paintings were then sold to third-party buyers. The prices of sold paintings ranged between $1,200 and $30,000. A pair of buyers purchased 7 fake paintings for a total of $110,000 in 2007. A distributor in southern Ontario would take a 30% commission on any sold paintings, while Voss received the balance of the proceeds. Other forgeries created by the Voss ring have been displayed during exhibitions in Canada. An explanation provided by Voss for how he came into possession of the Morisseau works included receiving them from his father, who he claimed was a jail guard at the Kenora District Jail during a brief time Morisseau was incarcerated there in the 1970s. But Voss's father never worked as a jail guard in Kenora, and Voss never received any original Morisseau paintings. The matter has been adjourned to September 5 for sentencing submissions.
Good evening. An author and an artist are the subjects of tonight's close-up, and deferring to youth, we'll start with the artist. Remember his name. It's Norval Morrisseau, a 31-year-old Ojibwe painter whose works were publicly displayed for the first time last week. The Toronto art world responded warmly to the showing held at a small gallery in the city's Greenwich Village. The collectors had heard the new name and came in droves to see and buy his art. They liked what they saw and snapped up all of his 35 pictures for a total of $4,000. Overnight, Norval Morrisseau, this shy, mystical artist, had found the acceptance he always knew would be his. Morrisseau has been painting in isolation, completely untutored. His home is in Beardmore, Ontario, a town in the remote Lake Nipigon country. His oil-on-paper paintings depict the history and religion of his people, and in all the works are the strong medicine symbols given to him, some in dreams, by the spirit Manitou. Norval Morrisseau is a man in conflict, caught between Christian teaching and his Ojibwe mystical beliefs. After the opening of his show, he talked with June Colwood for Close-Up.
What about the circle in the right-hand corner? I understand that's your name.
Yes, that's my name. The 2 circles on top are associated with Thunderbird.
Is that your name in Cree?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What is your name?
O Uzawa Pikopenese.
What does it mean approximately?
As close as what I could say is Copper Thunderbird.
It's a.
But if you want to say it in Ojibwe, Uzawa Pugnesis, you just you could say
Uzawa Pugnesis?
No.
Not even close, eh? It's an unusual name, Copper Thunderbird. It has a sound like the Southern Indians, the Aztecs. You said it was. Is it an unusual name in your tribe?
Yes, I was told it's a very powerful name, and those Indians that I have met in Red Lake area, they were telling me that it's a very powerful name. Some feared, and some showed respect and fear. Some of them because how come I had such a powerful name?
Who gave you your name?
It was a medicine woman from Ignace, Ontario. And what I understood was that I was very sick when I was small. And she said that I would live to be what I am right now today, like I would be grown up. And she gave me this name. From then I got better.
Did she predict that you would be an important man?
Well, that wasn't the thing that my people asked. It was just that would I get better? You know?
Would you live?
Yes.
She knew you would live.
Yes. Well, one time, it's a funny thing how I know too. Rabbits are not supposed to bite.
No.
And any bird knows that if rabbit ever bites you, it means long life. And the rabbit bit me here in my hand.
Good heavens.
And the next time a rabbit bit me twice, was that mean to say I'm going to live 2 lives?
When you go off by yourself, you said sometimes you go into the woods by yourself.
Mm.
What are you going away from?
Well, you see, religion gets so confusing to me too. I'm a Catholic, and these 2 things that sometimes I should believe in this, and then my beliefs to my Indian beliefs. These 2 things, they're always coming together. There's a time when they come so hard on me like that, I don't know what to think.
And can you sort it out by yourself?
Well, I sorted it out by myself, so now that is why I don't really practice the Indian beliefs, and I don't practice the Christian beliefs. So I'm in between.
But you don't want either one to hurt.
Yes.
Or to hurt the other.
Well, mind you, this painting now, I don't think there's nothing bad in them, because although these things were respected as demigods by my people, but still I don't think there's actually anything wrong with them. When I was, before I started here, we had this Great Spirit Manitou. I spoke to him and I asked him, help me to understand these things.
How can you speak to a Great Spirit?
We just have to.
What did he say?
And this is the medicine dream I had.
That you would paint?
That I would paint, and that I will always will be protected by these, that I'm not going to be afraid. And that I should take this, I hear them speaking, but it's not speaking, it's not as if he puts in something in your mind. And as if that our men will be protected both day and night. He gives me cloths. And when I look at the cloth, it was the sky, the night sky and the day sky. So that means a continuation of everyday protection as far as I'm going to bother this. Yeah. He told me to make a charm out of these 2 colors, or use these 2 colors, or wear a shirt in these 2 colors.
And as long as you go in this stream, you're all right.
Yes.
Have you been hurt since this?
No.
And so what happened to you here in the city, the success seemed to you like part of what was promised?
Yes.
And and will it go on?
Yes, it will go on. Now, even I know the time I'm going to die when I'm going to be old.
When?
I'll be very old.
You said how your mother died.
Yes, not my mother, my grandmother. She died of sorcery.
And your grandfather?
My grandfather, he pretty nearly died with my grandmother, but
it was the same spell?
Yes.
Could you die of sorcery?
How can I die when I got these 2 colors?
What are your colors?
Red and blue, or 2 light red and light blue.
And are they in all your paintings?
This is my own personal one.
Those are your colors?
They don't have to go on the paintings.
And when you do die, what happens to these colors?
They will die with me.
And will you end?
Well, we'll tell you when we come back again.
How will I know you?
Oh, I don't know.
You'll be red and blue.
Maybe they will.
One of the things that we were wondering about is how you were feeling when the gallery show opened. The people came in and looked at your paintings.
And it felt nothing.
Nothing? Did you feel strange about them?
Well, in a way, I was a little strange.
Did you feel that they were judging you?
Well, I felt they were judging the art, I guess.
Could you talk to them easily?
Yes, whenever they wanted to ask me for anything, I told them what I wanted to know.
What kind of questions?
You know, what these pictures meant, you know, where they were made, and...
Do you think that they understood what you were trying to say with the paintings?
I think I hope so that they understood me.
Would you describe for us something that's in one of your paintings, say the big colored one of the bird and what seems to be a snake?
Well, the picture represents a thunderbird. And the lightning, these are lightning marks, the ones that are shooting forth from its eyes. And then the lightning marks, or the lightning goes on top its head. The snake's head to paralyze it. And these, the tail square mark on the tail, these are medicine symbols. It represents any medicine here, what the Indians know. The bottom round lines, they are connected with the snake. That's medicine symbols also, good and bad. And of course the claw marks were the blood.
What are the sort of patterns on the snake and on the bird?
Well, we could say the scales for the snake. And those little marks there on the thunderbird, I thought I would put them on there because they look so sacred to me.
Do they look sacred?
Yes. That's why I put them there.
This week, I understand you made $4,000. What are you going to do with that?
I don't know.
What have you wanted?
What I wanted was people to know this art. This is all I ever wanted.
And is there something you want for your children?
Well, let my wife buy something for the children.
You had how much education?
Grade 4.
What about your children?
Well, I wish to send them to school now that I could afford. I hope that I am affording to send them so when they get big.
Oh, would they go to a white school or an Indian school?
Well, I don't see why that they can't go to white school.
Some Indians don't want their children in white schools.
I don't know about this.
But you do.
No, yeah.
What do you think that the thing that is in you might be in one of your children?
Yes, I'll learn them.
And will your wife? I understand she might weave, and you might do patterns for her.
She might weave. What I like to do with them, I'm going to buy a tape recorder, and I like to collect Indian songs. I'm a good singer myself, but I like to record it, and after it's what I like to hear myself, what I sound like.
You sing in Ojibwe?
Yes. And as well as I like telling Indian legends, and I like to talk in this machine and then listen to myself, relax, and listen to myself, see what I sound like.
Where do you learn the songs?
Oh, I have some of my own. I have 4 what I learned through my medicine dreams, and the others that what my grandfather has learned.
Would you be a medicine man, do you think?
Well, now I'm speaking in front of public. I would like the Indians to think I am a medicine man. I might be getting what you call this?
Really?
Prescriptions or something like that.
Yeah. Well, you do, though. You do find herbs for your people when you're in the woods, don't you?
Well, I heard you need a license too to practice.
I'm sure they'd let you bring back herbs, especially as they work. But you might possibly be what they called a medicine man.
I might.
Did medicine men, were they artists?
Well, they were very honored by all those great people. But I don't like to be honored. I don't want everybody to think, well, here's NORVAL MORRISSEAU, the great medicine man or artist. I don't want them to think that way of me. I want them just to think as I am.
And what are you?
An Indian. An Indian among Indians. Same thing like I don't like to think the artist to think me as a great artist. I want him to think just as an artist Like you're an artist and I'm an artist. Not because I made $4,000 this week, I'm greater than you when you made $200 last week. It's this way. To be equal, that's what I like.
Norval Morrissau, Ojibwe artist who brings a new dimension to Canadian art.